Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the Original Strength Podcast. I wanted to give you a pre-introduction this week because I'm having a very fascinating conversation about how the body's designed to heal itself with my friend Andrew Hutchinson. Anyway, Andrew just goes into some really fascinating information. It's exciting to me. This is such a fun conversation, but it's deep. So get a pen and paper and write down some of the things that Andrew says, so in case you want to check it out later for yourself. Anyway, very fun, very rich conversation. Guys, you're going to enjoy this. Buckle up. Hey guys, and thanks for joining us again on the Original Strength Podcast. This week we are going to be talking with a special guest, Mr. Andrew Hutchinson, and we're going to be talking about the restorative capabilities of the body. So Andrew, hey, thank you so much for being on the show with me.
My pleasure.
So Andrew, you have a lot you want to say about how the body is able to restore itself. Can you give me a background on how did you discover that your body is able to restore itself?
Through being unwell.
Being unwell.
Yeah. Give it a name. I suppose you could loosely call it, starting off as what people would refer to as muscle guarding. I had very mild pains in my feet. I'd been messing around with some new running techniques, and I don't want to delve too much into it, but I think that because of the way that I'd been living my life in the preceding couple of years, reading a lot of information that was probably on the more negative side, watching a lot of news and so on and so forth, that I didn't realize at the time that I started perceiving things quite negatively and had become quite fearful. So rather than being the old me that would have just written it off as exactly what it was, I'd been messing around with stuff and had obviously not done something right. I became fearful that I was going to damage something permanently in my feet, like snap a tendon or something like that. And because of the limited knowledge I had, and just enough knowledge to cause trouble, I perceived that as being potentially long-term, causing real issues for me long-term. And basically, with every step I took, I became more and more fearful of hurting myself. And I started to clench in more and more and more, if you want to call it pulling in from the center of movement, the center of the psoas, and effectively clamped down, almost like I was curling up into a fearful ball, the freeze response. And it eventually ended up with me cutting off the blood flow, if you like, and the energy flow to my legs to a large extent. Not completely, but enough that my feet started to change color, my toenails started to blacken, they were cold all the time. And I got to the point where I could hardly get up off the floor. I got cold hands all the time. And things were rapidly going kind of downhill. This happened over a period of, a few months. I went from being perfectly healthy, bouncing around, big, fit and strong, to someone that really couldn't do anything. And, a very anxious mindset, as well as, we would refer to it as anxiety, being fearful of things that, I would never have been afraid of before, the craziest kind of, well, not crazy, because that, I don't want to call other people crazy for having those thoughts, but yeah, even being fearful of eating out. What had somebody done to my food? Somebody I'd never even met. So yeah, I was in a pretty bad way, and it became clear to me that I wasn't well, and more so on a physical level, that what we call physical, that I wasn't doing well, and that I was getting quite sick. I went to the doctor, was prescribed, anti-inflammatories for my feet, was told I got plantar fasciitis, which, clearly wasn't the case. Without meaning any disrespect, it was clearly more than that. And then spent every penny I'd got left in savings on manual therapy to no avail, and stopped me at any point, and ended up.
So I do want to I just want to stop you to ask you a question. So
Yeah.
What you're saying is through, and this is kind of fascinating because the mind is so powerful. Through fear, you got injured, basically.
Yeah.
Through thoughts of fear.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can dip into that if you want. I mean, if
Sure.
Well, without wanting to kind of try and go too deep on this, because I'm no expert on the psoas, for example. But if people talk about the brain in our head, our gut brain, and we forget our movement brain. Most people forget that we have this thing that develops very, very early on in the embryonic stage, and it's linked to the reptilian brain. And effectively, all movements, if you read the work of people like Liz Clark and Joanne Stougard Jones, who would be experts in that field, all movement starts at the center of the psoas. So once the decision has been made, if you like, by the brain, there's this chain of command, which I'm not going to go into. The upper lip, there's a region around here that plays a big role in this, where the two energy circuits connect, where the main energy circuit in the body connects. That message gets sent to the center of psoas, and then movement begins, if you like. So we wiggle our finger, that comes from the very center of our core, the center of our reflexive strength, this X, if you like, that connects to the vertebrae in the lower limbs. That, hence why contralateral movement is so powerful. So, because you effectively are working with the psoas to a large extent. So if you're fearful, it affects the way you move. Effectively, I see everything as restricted movement in terms of fear. So the brain, let me go back a touch here. I remember watching a thing by a neuroscientist years ago called Daniel Wolpert, and he explained how our brain is for one thing primarily, and that's to decide how and when we move, and to move with fear or trepidation or so on and so forth. And then it sends this message. So you'll probably be aware of, you've been in a situation where the brain says, I'm going to do this. Say, for example, a bungee jump or a skydive or anything like that, and the body won't go. Because this brain down here, the psoas says, no. Because it has something, there's something stored within there, whatever we want to believe in terms of how we get information from the field, or whether it's stored as memories within the actual body and the fascia or whatever. There are various theories on that. The psoas says no, so it restricts movement. And that's why we find all this trauma tends to be stored in what philosophers call the seat of the soul, the psoas. And, people have back pain generally in similar regions because the psoas clamps down bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. And, you build layers of fear upon that and more movement restrictions. Because if you're in fear, what do? The body says don't move, because you're safe if you stay still. If you move, there's the potential for you getting harmed. So if you are fearful, you just freeze. And you continue to freeze at whatever level that might be. I think I've gone off on a tangent there. If you could pull me back to where we were. So yeah, I became sick through being fearful. So I basically caused this clamping up of the center of movement, so much fear that obviously pulls on everything else. We can talk fascia, we can talk how it, that affects the muscles in the hips, and effectively pulls it all in. This X in the middle of our body pulls everything in towards it, if in a very simplistic way. And yeah, then you've got problems with, if we imagine the basic biotensegrity model, that we look at it from a particle point of view, cells or tiny particles, subatomic level, whatever you want to, however deep you want to go. You've got 100 of them here, 50 of them go like that. That's what we call inflammation, or, they're clustered together. They've stopped moving there. No, don't go there. So these guys are like 50 angry guys in a lift, and over here we've got the other 50 too far apart. They can't communicate properly either. So when we think of everything coming into the body as information, whether that be in water, in food, or whatever, everything we take in, wavelengths from other people, all this information is coming in various forms, proprioception, all this stuff. So yeah, I've gone off on a tangent again. See, I lose myself. But I effectively clamped up and stopped blood flowing properly, stopped the lymphatic system working properly, because when these things you pull one out of sync, you start to mess with the whole system, obviously, because it's all connected.
So fear is a threat to the nervous system, and it draws everything up, making it rigid and tight, and will not allow for expression of movement or good expression of emotion, good in quotes, good expression of emotion, freedom of creativity and movement, and any way we can express ourselves. Fear just draws us up. Is that kind of where we're going?
Explained far more beautifully than my waffle, but yeah.
No, I'm tracking with you, man. I'm excited about the stuff you're saying.
Yes, emotion is energy in motion. So intelligent energy in motion, yeah. So yeah, we can. When there's a cluster here, that requires energy to hold it. So if we imagine there's an energy blockage, we call them in yoga and stuff like that, energy blockage, and there's not enough here. So when you feel a lot in one area, you're very sensitive in one area, that's because you've got one of these. And in another area, you'll have noticed this. Anyone that's ever paid awareness to the body, over here, you don't feel much. It's like it's almost, there's not enough sensitivity. And this is, the expression feeling poorly. I believe that's where that comes from. You feel poorly over here because there's not enough getting there. There's too much here, and it's causing this imbalance. And whether we talk about the myelin sheaths in fascia on the nervous system, that being the actual reason why the nervous system's affected, or whatever, there are many theories, but it seems to have that effect, and the science seems to back it up. When you've experienced it and then you've practiced certain things and then the science backs it up, you kind of go, okay, well, if all these things are matching up, it seems to make sense.
No, right on. All right, so through fear, you became injured and sick and feeling poorly, and
Yes.
you went through a lot of you started seeking ways to feel well again, including lots of manual therapy and professional help. Where did you go from there?
I ran out of money, and not that I had one in the first place, but I stumbled across a book on TRE by a doctor called David Bocelli, who'd worked with disaster survivors all around the world, people from islands where there'd been volcanoes and things like that. And he worked with this thing called trauma release exercises, or tension release exercises, which effectively fatigue, in the most simplistic way, it tries to fatigue muscles connected as much as possible to the psoas and the hip region, so that when you lie down in a particular way and you basically put your feet together and you allow your knees to fall out, so you pull your feet together up towards the crotch, towards that region, and allow the knees to fall out, and then slowly bring them together, and it eventually starts this tremor. And these are known as neurogenic tremors. So it's basically the nervous system starting to heal itself. It's causing a change in frequency. You'll probably be aware that most diseases are now known to exist at different frequencies within the body. So this is the nervous system basically fixing that through shaking, through vibrating. And there are various treatments being used now all around the world for various diseases using, devices that emit frequencies. So, and you can do this with food, you can do it, there's a whole host of things you can use. Obviously, movement being so powerful, because if you change the very structure of the muscles, the sarcomeres, all this, you change the frequency. You change your energy, you change your chemistry. When you change your chemistry, you feel good. It feels good to feel good.
Feels good, yes.
So, so where was I? I'd gone off again there, getting overexcited. So yeah, I read this book and I said, I'll do the exercises tomorrow. And I lay down and I brought my awareness, because I'd done yoga years ago, just a little bit. And I brought my awareness to the region of my psoas. And I just started shaking like crazy, like scissoring, basically. My knees were coming up to my chest, my head was going down. And I just felt this rock in the middle of me, where basically the psoas is, the kind of solar plexus a bit lower. And it just felt like a rock. And it was like trying to break down this iceberg-like lump. And over the period of a few days, I saw significant improvement. But then I allowed my study, this, intensive search for, what might help, to kind of overtake. And I started applying things that didn't work. And rather than coming back to the one basic thing that had, I kept searching for more things. And I started to force relaxation upon the kind of pelvic floor region, if you like. And believe me, that's something you never want to do. To focus, to tell muscles to relax and kind of force that relaxation upon them. Because obviously relaxation is the opposite of contraction. So, we contract and then we just allow things to relax. I'm not going to talk about, lowering a bicep curl, but in general, so when you force something to relax, it's very, very hard to then get the control back in that area. And I effectively lost complete control of my pelvic floor by forcing it to relax. So that made things even worse in some way. So I was getting what I felt was better, but then I also made things a lot worse. And that taught me a big lesson in terms of return to the very thing that started you feeling better. And what I didn't mention, sorry, go on.
No, you brought up a good point. I think oftentimes it's the really simple things that yield a lot of results, but we don't get satisfied with that, and then we always look for more, or whether it's more flashy, more complicated, or we just miss that this is working, so why don't I just stay with it? It's just kind of neat, because I've done the same things with myself, for sure.
Yeah, okay. I thought you were going to tell me a bit about that then, but I feel like I'm
Oh
talking
no,
so much.
this is your
So,
story.
so yeah. So yeah, and you're so right. And that was the biggest lesson. The one thing that I forgot to mention when I lay down and I brought my awareness to that area, I also remembered this little trick from years before where you bring your awareness to this area here around the top lip, ideally on the inside of the roof of your mouth. It's between two acupuncture points or acupressure points, which funnily enough are known to activate the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. When you breathe in, if you breathe in through your nose and you close your eyes, on the in-breath, you can actually feel this almost whisper of breath slightly higher on the inside of the roof of the mouth. And as you breathe out, you feel it slightly lower. And it matches up with these 2 points, GV26 and 27. And it's where funny enough, where the tip of the tongue is supposed to rest most of the time, which obviously causes a whole number of things, as well as supporting the maxilla. It helps with breathing, but it also connects these two energy channels that circulate around the body, or the one energy channel, the two ends of it. So bringing your awareness there, literally just when you bring your awareness anywhere, the body directs resources there. Energy follows thought. Widely known kind of thing by the yogis years ago. So when you bring your awareness to that place, the body starts to fix itself. You don't tell it what to do. You simply bring your awareness and go, okay, show me how to fix it. And it'll start moving things. And your jaw will start adopting a different position and your tongue will start to move into that place. So simply by bringing your awareness to this location, which is so important, it's known as the human reset button, funnily enough. It can wake you up, I believe, from when you've been knocked out if you squeeze it hard enough. Never tried it, but so yeah, luckily, I was blessed to remember, bring yourself back to that one point and just ask. And I said, please just show me how to fix this. I don't know whether I was asking God, whatever we want to see God to be, or my higher self, some blueprint for the human body that I believe it has, saying, please show me how to fix this. And when I went there, it was as if it was like, right, this is the start, here we go. And it would take me somewhere and I'd get a sensation maybe in the shoulder and I'd move my arm a little bit. And then it would stop and I wouldn't know what to do. Okay, go back there. And I'd go back there. And then it would go there again. And maybe that would start tremoring and it would start moving. And I'd be taken through these movements. I'd be taken through movements by my system. It would show me to do movements that I never even thought of doing. I ended up doing things that were like yoga moves that I'd never learned when I did yoga, you know, twisting all over the place. And then it would suddenly start tremoring and the arm would start going or whatever. And I learned that these were neurogenic tremors, and bit by bit by bit, the body started to unravel. Now there was a big rock right in the middle, and we can talk about where that came from, you know, early childhood traumas, possibly, who knows, as these things do. But bit by bit, yeah, I started to get better. And during that time was when I came across you guys, and I was a long way from well at that point still. You know, I still couldn't run. And yeah, I'll stop talking for a minute there, but
No, that's that, man. I got to tell you, everything you're saying is fascinating to me. Like I'm totally digging it. But no, so don't stop. So you started getting better. Your body was guiding you towards through thought. You were focusing thought, and energy was going to where you were focusing, and your body was guiding you towards healing.
yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah,
And then as that was happening, then you also came across original strength.
yeah.
Okay, and so then what?
Well, I continued to do that practice because obviously just going and lying down, that practice had become the one thing that really helped at that point. So, you know, and there were various things, if you don't mind me saying, that I found added to that. Like if you lie on a firm surface, for example, because wherever you have, you know, what we'll call tension, we'll call it excessive tension in one area. If you lie down on a firm surface, like a yoga mat on a wooden floor, on your side, and try and form a pillow without a pillow with your arm, you know, we all have, most of us, not you, have poor external rotation in our shoulders. So we really struggle to get into that position and lie on our arm without discomfort. And that discomfort is simply a calling sign to say, well, come here. So all you have to do is present the body with a hard surface and it'll go, hey, come here, bring energy here. So you bring your thought there. Okay, right now we have the conscious mind with the subconscious, whatever you want to call it, you know, sending these signals up that we very rarely listen to, or because we're in comfy beds or comfy sofas, we never feel them because we don't sit on the floor anymore. that's a massive thing, spending time on the floor, as you've said a million times. So you feel these signals, and all you have to do is then go there and be with those signals, and it will start to do what it needs to do. It'll make you move, it'll make you twitch, and it'll make you stretch, it'll do all kinds of things. So then I came across you guys, and just the way that you were was just so, and forgive me, it's not like fan worship, but it was just so wonderful, because the way that you talked about us being beautifully made, wonderfully made, capable of anything, it just fit in so much with what I'd started to believe. I was at the early stages. I was at the human body has the restorative capabilities to get well again. I hadn't yet kind of moved to that place where it was like, okay, I could literally do anything here. I could become, by the time I'm 50, I can go and win a marathon if I should so desire, or basically whatever. And you helped me. Original Strength helped me continue the journey, because I then went from continuing my practice on the floor, because it's so simple, to bring those signals up, to now I've got a really, I don't want to say simple, because it is simple, Original Strength, but as you well know, and from the little I know, behind that simplicity is a huge amount of complexity, but it's presented in such a wonderful way that it's like, you do this and it will work. If you believe it, brilliant, because if you believe it and you do it, the two things together, you can heal through belief, you can heal through just doing it.
Yes.
Bring the two together, and you've got magic. And that's what you guys do. You have this wonderful system that if somebody didn't believe at all, but just did it, they'd start to get better. And because they started to change chemically, because they couldn't not, because they'd be releasing the psoas, they'd be releasing all this, they would no longer be having all these myokines, cytokines being expressed from within the muscles at the levels they were, less inflammation, feeling better. As you say again, it feels good. They would feel good chemically. And when you feel good chemically, every interaction that you have within life is different. If I encounter you today and I'm sad, we have a different conversation to the one if I'm feeling happy. So it's and then so I started doing cross crawls, speed skaters. Cross crawls were pretty much all I could do at first, to be honest, because the mobility in the hips, which is still recovering, I'll be honest, my mobility in my hips is still pretty poor, compared with quite a lot of people, especially yourself. But I'm well now, and improving all the time, and incorporating more moves with more, I don't want to say complexity, because it's not more complexity, it's more range of movement with every day. And as I do, obviously that changes my chemistry.
Yes.
And feel better every day, and that all impacts it. So then my thought processes are different every day, and the belief gets stronger, and the movements get better, and it's just you're on an upward spiral, and it's very hard to bring you down, because those things that would have destroyed you, well, you're now in a place where it's almost like, well, did that even happen? You can just brush it to one side. So it would take something really quite huge, which these things become a challenge more. I'm not saying I'm ready to cope with anything, but these challenges become, you see them differently. You see them as challenges. You don't see them as, I'm crushed anymore. And yeah, I'm in a pretty good place now.
So you go from, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to understand, you can get from a lens or perspective of seeing everything through fearful eyes, and if you can get to a place of seeing everything through hopeful eyes, or helpful eyes, then
yes,
then the body follows that lens as well, pretty much.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So
well, if sorry, go on.
I was going to ask so this all started with you where fear started creeping in, right? So now are you to the point where courage has crept in enough that it just builds on its own, and you're like you said, that upward spiral, where you can reach out and grab anything now?
I'm not yet at, I was going to say, the point I'd like to be. For want of a better way of expressing that, yeah, I'm nowhere near where I know we have the capability to be.
Okay.
But from where I was, yeah, I mean, I'm living a decent, happy existence where I can move, not as well as I'd like to yet, but pretty well. I can do all the basics. So yeah, and I mean, whatever theory, because I mean, I should mention these, seeing as we're at that point, there are a number of theories, and I don't want to go too far down this route about, information and feeling fear. So as I said, a lot of people believe that we actually store memories, for example, in fascia. So it's actually stored within the nervous system. Nobody can prove whether it is or isn't, or how it is. And there are other theories that believe that when we change our frequency, which we do, therefore we vibrate in a different way, we don't pick up information in the same way, or the same information, from what we would call the field or God or morphic resonance, all these kind of things. So however that works, I've been down that road, and it's a deep rabbit hole that, for me, it's, let's come back to square one again. Right, does that make me feel better? Am I experiencing life differently and in a better, more helpful, as you say, way? And yeah, those things seem to explain it. Whether or not they're right or not, I don't know, and I no longer need to, because things are improving every day, and I'm on the upward spiral, and nothing seems to knock me off that anymore. So I can. This is going to be a big year, because there's been a lot happen in the last 6 months to a year in my life that could have really knocked me off again. So, and I've come through the other side, really, touch wood, quite well. So yeah, I'm happy with the way things are going, and yeah, just the next stage is to move like you, but
it's in there
with that level of fluidity. But that's probably going to take me a little while.
I invite you to move better than I move, because why limit yourself? It's in there.
Yeah.
So no,
yeah.
I think your story is beautiful. And really, it's man, there are so many people, and no one, not necessarily anyone's immune to fear. If you start thinking negatively, or you allow fear to creep in, it can wreck you. It can jack you up. But I have a friend of mine, Louis, who he's a healer. He helps people heal, and he has this approach where if one movement can take you into pain, is it not possible that one movement could take you out of pain?
Yeah.
And so the same thought with take that out of movement and take it into thought. If one thought can take you into fear or into pain, could one thought take you out of fear and out of pain? Absolutely, right. The body is so amazing, and we're so much more than just flesh and physical stuff. There's something going on in here inside that is so much more powerful than the body is, because the body tends to follow that. And I think everything you've been expressing so far is how the body follows the thoughts and the energy of the thoughts and the emotions.
Massively. And there's, if you imagine, on one level, you could almost imagine all this information comes in, whether it's through vibrations from other people around you, your environment. We take in a lot of information through our eyes and our ears. Obviously, we do. This is, but then effectively we take it in through the processor, if you like. I don't want to think of us as computers, but for a useful analogy, and then it scans the hard drive, and we have that gut feeling, which is all that stuff stored in the psoas that says, whoa, 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 no, because all those fears are there, whether they're stored there or wherever they are. That's fear, and that projects back up the reality. So we've taken in information, scanned what we, everything we think we know, and now we project that reality. So that reality is based on all the stuff we have stored within here. So, and this is where movement, through my journey, I now know that thought is top of the food chain. If you can change your thoughts, yes, absolutely. But a lot of the time, because you're in a certain chemical state, because of that, you can't change your thought unless somebody's walking around with you all day, tapping you on the shoulder going, you need to reframe that. So movement gives you a consistent thing that you can do every single day that will change you structurally and change your chemistry structurally, especially when it's a program like OS. because you are working with the place, not that you're just working with the psoas, but you are working with that X, you're working with that reflexive, and you can release those fears through movement. You don't even have to have the thought, because I've had thoughts of fears, literally, you watch them disappear as you're doing the movements. And you may have had that, you watch something go and it's like, oh, that's strange, or an old memory. And it almost just seems to come up and then just go. So yeah, it's a staggering. Yeah, I have beliefs about how it all works, but do I really know? No.
It's kind of like a chicken or egg thing.
Yeah.
And it is a very, instead of if this then that, instead of being linear, to me it's more circular. It's a dance, and so, like, for instance, if the body follows the thoughts and the emotions, yes, but the thoughts and the emotions follow the body too.
Yeah.
So movement could be the simplest, lowest hanging fruit, the one that you can engage in regardless of the thoughts and the emotions, as a doorway to change the thoughts and the emotions.
Exactly. Once again, communicated, with less waffle than me. But that's it. That's exactly it. It's the one that you can just keep doing without the need for Post-it notes all over your house, Smile.
Which are helpful. They're helpful.
Absolutely.
But sometimes if the brain is stuck on a track, it wants to stay in that track. And sometimes you have to be sideswiped to get out of that track. Yeah. And movement can be the sideswipe, I think, for people, versus trying to beat yourself up and make yourself think certain things or say certain mantras, which are still helpful, especially if you can get them to play in the background as you move. But yeah, so I think, because here's the thing, not everybody because we all have different maturity levels as far as where we are on our journey. So we don't all have access to tap into our brain and make it do exactly. We can't use our mind as the tool that it's designed to be used, because a lot of times it's using us. But we can all tap into our body and move it, because it is still the tool too, and it can be a backdoor entry into getting the mind to soften up a bit.
Well, yeah, and especially because, forgive me for going in here, because this is where the mind, we have this word, the mind, we think here. Okay, but hang on a minute. If all the information is stored within the body, there's changing the perception. That's the mind. So the mind is a combination of the two. So hang on a minute. We're not just playing with the body. We are working with the mind, because we're working with those places that store the information, that create the stories, which is the mind. Well, we talk about the big mind all around us, but yeah. So you are working with the mind when you work with the body. And I think that gets missed a lot. We think mind, we think head. No. The mind is there as well.
It's weird. You're making me think of fountains of living waters coming up from the center. Anyway, that's a whole other. Man, this is really a fun conversation for me. All right, so
take it where you want. I'm loving it.
You're right, exactly. So what's next for you? Where to next? Where do you want to go?
I am now. I do the practice. Keep doing what you need to do to keep the things happening. So for me, I've had to go back to square one. So in some ways, in terms of what I do with my everyday, the world requires badges for you to do things. So I'm currently training as a PT, which will give me a badge to allow me to start to work in the field of movement with people. I hope I'm allowed to say this, like, I have a credit card with no money on it, ready for the next time you guys are in Europe, so that I can pay for, that's my investment, that's for my life investment for me and the kids, so that I can then come on the course, first part of the course, and start that, because I want to work with people using what I've learned, centered around OS, to help them in whatever way I can. Whether or not I add ecstatic movement to that as well, I'd like to, because I think that can be hugely powerful as well, but we'll see. So that's the goal for this year. Should have the course finished, providing I pass, by April. I used to do it years ago for a few months back when I finished school, but the qualification's worth nothing these days. So, I've had a number of friends who have kind of helped, in inverted commas, with what I've learned, who had chronic illnesses, and basically applied similar principles, and and fix themselves. So they've all said, you don't need courses, just go out there and help people. It's like, yeah, but where do I start? You know, I mean, like to just, so, and also because of my love for OS and just you guys and the way you are and the way you present yourselves, and just, you know, I know it might sound like a bit of a fanboy, but I think the way you do things is just beautiful. It's so humble, it's beautiful, you know so much, but yeah, you know, enough said. It's just fantastic what you do. And I think it has the capability of helping so many people that to be able to be part of that family would just be a wonderful thing. For me, being able to do that day in, day out, but to be part, just to be part of that and the people that I don't even know that I imagine are involved, you know.
So
Yeah.
let me help you there. You're already part of the family, man. You you you've been such an encouragement. So thank you very much. So let me ask you this. Is it possible, and this is just kind of to sum up everything we talked about, is it possible that the body can actually be injured in such a way or be sick in such a way that it's beyond where science or current medical practices can't figure it out? Is that a thing? Is that possible?
Can it be fixed?
No,
Like
like
it can't?
where it stymies or it just confuses medicine, where medicine's like, or all the approaches to medicine don't work, or they just can't put a finger on it just yet.
If I had to be so bold as to say it, I think, and I was going to say, I've spoken to a couple of doctors who I have kind of met through, you know, the last few years, just from being on certain forums talking about stuff from time to time. Pretty rare I do that now, but they would be the first to admit, and I know there are a number of, you know, kind of well-known doctors who've come out and said that, you know, when it comes to the kind of chronic stuff, if you like, we really don't have much of a grip on what we're doing. And that's meant with all due respect. You know, when you have training that is based on, you know, years and years and years ago, and these things take a while to change. You know, the new information takes many, many years. It's known, should they say, that it takes many, many years for this to start to become more mainstream, and a whole host of reasons why, you know, insurance and one thing another, applying new methods. And I think that I would go along with, I think it was Ben Goldacre that said the doctor said something along the lines of, you know, if it was for trauma and severe accidents and stuff, go and see a doctor. But I think he said something like 80% of what he learned in medical school was next to useless. And I don't want that to be, that's probably a bit harsh.
No,
that came out of the doctor's mouth, you know. So I think they will probably slowly come to the understanding that, you know, what is inflammation? This thing that we now starting to realize is responsible for most chronic illness. Do they have a handle on most chronic illness? It would seem not, because the people that I look out there that are fixing people, that sounds terrible, that are helping people are usually modalities that don't claim to do that, whether it be yourselves, and you've never made any such claims, or, you know, other movement modalities that I've seen out there. And, you know, I won't mention any names, but I've seen people, you know, kind of fix themselves using movement modalities, fix chronic illnesses, and use things from yoga, like, you know, ulcerative colitis, using meditation and focusing energy to fix things like that. You know, hypothyroid conditions, which are considered incurable, people using, you know, you look at Dr. Joe Dispenza and the work that he does with Bruce Lipton, the doctor who wrote Biology of Belief. You know, those guys are using specific forms of focused meditation, if you want to give it a simple name, to fix really serious illnesses, you know, even ones that I can't even say the word of. But people are curing themselves. So, you know, and these things are starting to get studied by hospitals. And university hospitals are starting to measure these things. So it is starting to change. But as with anything like that, it takes a long time to happen.
Yeah, and where I was going with that, and you answered that beautifully. I love medicine. I'm glad we have it. I think my only question is that I think our knowledge is there's a certain mystery in the body that we just don't fully know through knowledge and science yet. And maybe we never will. But my whole point to that is that there can be, because there is a mystery to the body. There can be things that are beyond medicine that are just bigger and deeper or bigger, right?
Oh yeah.
So, but the cool thing is even things that get labeled through terms like a disease or a condition, those labels aren't necessarily prison sentences either, because the mystery of the body is such that the body can heal itself, and
Yes.
it's not beyond help, and it's not beyond hope. And that's, to me, that's the powerful thing, is that even if so like you could have a frustrating condition and sign and do all the medical things and go see all the professionals, and they do the very best they can because they're truly invested in wanting to help you, and truly invested in their, you know, their occupation and their job and trying to make the world better. But it can still be frustrating if there's not a solution that's found for you. But because the body can heal, and if you can tap into that, if something like you did, you didn't settle for you get what you get or you're just stuck. You kept seeking, and then the mystery started to unfold itself to you. And to me, it's just powerful. It's very hopeful.
No, absolutely.
That no matter what your condition is, there's always hope that your body can repair itself, because there's something bigger and greater than our knowledge base that can help us.
Yes.
I guess that's what I was trying to say.
No, it absolutely beautifully said as well. And then one of the biggest things I learned was that I know nothing. And it was this unknowing of all of this stuff, and then trying to rebuild that into knowing something, but not wanting to, well, not wanting to, it just happened. Thinking that, yes, this all makes sense now because I've experienced this, I've seen this, whatever. And it backs, you know, these people are backing it up in the studies they're doing and stuff. So that seems to make sense, but I'm not in that place where that is definitely true. Because as you say, the wonder, there is a bigger mystery. There is definitely a bigger mystery. But then when you look at, when you look at, you know, when they look at kind of quantum science, if you like, and they've tried to break particles down to find the smallest thing that there is in nature, and they still can't do it. And it's believed that the reason for that is that the moment we do that, we create something. Because we create reality, we create something smaller. So we don't know. You know, we could be avatars in a simulation, as many of the quantum guys now believe. You know, we're in this game to figure out some problem that we have in the real world, and they're playing this game with us down here. But you know, I mean, that can seem like the realm of craziness, but we don't know. There is this wonder, and that's what brought me to, you know, kind of those ideas, if you like, of that many people have experienced before me of God, consciousness, whatever, from being someone that would have kind of poo-pooed all that years ago.
Andrew, this has been, well, I've had a lot of fun. I've been so soaking up everything you've been saying. So thank you so much for sharing part of your story with us. I'm very grateful for that.
Thanks for the time. It's been wonderful talking to you too. I could go on for hours.
And I think I want you to. So if I tell you what, guys, if you're listening to, I think we're going to bring Andrew back to talk about some other stuff. He's got a lot of stories and topics he can talk about. And if anything else, I mean, I'm just being selfish because I want to hear them. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to this edition of the OS BodCast. And if you forgot what this is about how the body is able to restore itself, no matter what the condition. So Andrew, thank you for being with us, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Absolute pleasure, Tim. Thanks very much.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Original Strength Podcast. If you made it this far, thank you so much.